All right, today I'm going to talk about bodybuilding genetics. Okay, specifically people who say that they have like a weak body part. Okay, my calves don't grow, my chest doesn't grow, my legs don't grow, whatever. Everybody's talking about like they have this one body part that for some reason just won't grow, even though they're working on it. Okay, and I have some really strong body parts, and I have some really weak body parts as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about it. First of all, I have really good calves. Like my calves have always been strong. Okay, now, whether I work them or not, as a matter of fact, I do the least amount of work. I don't do any direct work for my calves, but I have awesome, awesome, awesome calves. Like really, it honestly, I would have like the absolute perfect dream body in terms of aesthetics if every part of my body, every muscle was the same, hardness and the same size comparable to my calves. If my arms were the same size as my calves, it would be awesome. If my thighs were big enough to be like, comparable to my calves, I would have awesome legs. Okay. So what I'm basically saying is my calves, even though I don't work them, are awesome. Okay. On the other hand, my chest was always lagging. Okay, so a lot of people would say that I have really good genetics for calves and I have really bad genetics for chest, and I can't do anything about it, and that's just the way it is. Let's talk about this for a second. Do I really have genetically good calves? Now, there are a couple things that I've been doing my entire life, okay? I did martial arts my whole life. Okay, when I was a kid, I was studying a Korean martial art. Korean martial arts are really into kicking, flashy, jumping, flying kicks. Like when we did demonstrations, I was the guy that would like jump over people and kick boards in half with like both of my feet at the same time. That was me. Okay, now jumping, believe it or not, really comes from your calves. Okay, so I would work out my calves. I mean, and this was before I knew what calisthenics were. I just saw on like a martial arts TV show on like public TV, like some PBS channel. They're like, oh, go ahead and just raise yourself up on your toes. And then after a while, put a phone book, back when there were phone books, raise yourself up on that and then do it with one leg. And you got to do like 100 reps. Okay. So way back then, I would go ahead and do like, 100 reps of calf raises, and I didn't know how to set up a workout routine, so I probably did it too often. Okay, now I haven't done that in like 25 years maybe. I mean, it was a long time ago when I used to do that, but the fact is I did that. Believe it or not, I was very socially awkward when I was a kid. Like I always kind of felt like people were watching me. I always felt self-conscious, and the way I used to walk, believe it or not, was like very stiff. Like my whole body was stiff, my legs were stiff, and I walked basically from my calves. So just walking from class to class in high school, or in junior high school, I would get like a calf pump, okay? Like seriously, just because like I should basically just walk doing like single leg calf lifts with my body weight, walking from class to class. I was really self-conscious, okay? So I would literally several times a day get a massive killer pump in my calves. Then I joined the Army, okay? A lot of things you do in the Army is you walk with a heavy backpack, added weight, okay, and you just walk. And for some reason, that really hits your calves a lot. Like I knew some SEALs, I knew some Marines. They said that they had like pretty big thighs, and I'm like, why do you have such big thighs? And they're like, running in the sand, you have to use your thighs a lot because they would run on the beach all the time. Well, in the Army, walking, I always use my calves. It's basically like having a heavy ass backpack and then just walking for hours and doing single leg, calf raises, okay? Got out of the Army, and I kind of screwed around with NHB, no holds barred, which is what there was before there was mixed martial arts, okay? And I really fell in love with jump rope. That is, to this day, I will swear to you that jump rope is the best cardiovascular, like heart and lungs exercise ever, okay, ever. And that's basically like if I do 5 sets of 2 minutes, 10 sets of 1 minute, that's like 20 minutes of jumping single leg calf raises, okay? So that's like a plyometric calf exercise, and that is my go-to exercise. If I want to get in cardio shape, my go-to exercise. If I want to burn fat, my go-to exercise. If I just want to stay in shape because I'm in my 40s now, that's my go-to exercise. On the other hand, okay, when I started lifting weights, I started late. It was basically when I was in the Army. Never really had a training partner. People would flake on me all the time. I never really had somebody I could work out with consistently. So basically, I ended up working out on my own all the time. We had free weights. I was always scared to get caught underneath the bench. I mean, not scared, but I mean, I worked out hard. I worked out to failure. So I never really did a whole lot of bench, okay? Smith machine, I mean, I always had a hard time, centering the bench underneath the Smith machine, which has hooks on it. And it's like a machine, basically. It goes up and down. But, like, I had a hard time centering the bench. I remember a couple of times I'd have my body off to the side, and it would just be weird. Like, I hurt my shoulder because I had my arms spaced weird. It wasn't like using a free bar. And they didn't have power racks where you could basically set a safety catch to catch the bar if you drop it, if you can't get the weight back into the rack. So they didn't have that. So I couldn't really bench. So I didn't really bench. I didn't know about dips back in the day. I mean, I knew they existed, but I didn't know you could add weight and build up, serious strength in your upper body by doing heavy weighted dips. So what happened is basically I didn't do a whole lot of work for my chest. So now, look at me and tell me, do I have a genetic predisposition to have big calves? Or is it just that I've worked my calves my entire life? Okay? Do I have a genetic predisposition to having a small chest? Or is it just that I haven't really worked my chest? And believe it or not, this week I should be doing weighted dips, 3 sets of 5 with 3 big plates with 135 pounds additional weight added to my body. That is incredible pushing power. I mean, it's not incredible like elite world class, but I doubt, 90% of the people watching this right now, unless they do hardcore weighted calisthenics themselves, have ever seen somebody do 3 sets of 5 with 135 pounds. It's the thing you see in YouTube, but you don't actually see in real life most of the time. So like I said, it's not elite, and I'm not really proud of myself, but I'm sure as hell not weak in my chest and my triceps and my shoulder pushing, okay? And it just so happens this is the first time that I really started doing a serious upper body pushing exercise, okay? So that's what I'm basically trying to say now, is like when somebody says, I have bad genetics for forearms, or I have bad genetics for biceps or something, I really don't believe it, okay? And there is, I believe, such a thing as I have bad genetics for whatever, okay? But it's more like, you have fast and slow twitch muscle fibers, okay? There are people who are better at endurance than others. There are people that are better at maximum strength than others, okay? But that's that's like your whole body, okay? That's not like, well, part of my body over here and part of my body over there. In general, you may be better at endurance, you may be better at strength. But the fact of the matter is, even a person who is genetically predisposed to being strong can get endurance. And a person who is basically a born endurance athlete can also get strong with proper training. Another reason why I think that there's genetically strong people and genetically weak people is natural testosterone levels, okay? Whether it's your diet, your environment, your attitude, everything that, sleep schedule, everything that goes into your testosterone level, or if it's just, you're just naturally don't have the high testosterone level, it's not like you have a tourniquet around your calves, okay? So I have weak calves because the testosterone doesn't flow below my knees. It's like, no, it's like if you have high testosterone and your whole body is, really good at growing muscle, your whole body is really good at growing muscle. If you are weaker, okay, and you have less testosterone, your whole body is less good at building muscle because you have less testosterone through your whole body. So what I'm trying to say is there is no such thing as, oh, I've got good biceps but bad triceps. That's because you don't do your biceps. It's like when I was a kid, this whole thing about Asians being so smart was, first came out as a thing. And I remember reading a newspaper article, and what they said is, if you ask a bunch of white Americans, parents, what makes a kid smart or get good grades, and they'd say, genetics basically. They say, oh, it's, they're just born like that, natural talent. If you ask a bunch of Chinese American parents, they'd say it's effort. They said that they would encourage their kids to study together, to set up study groups, to hang out with their friends instead of, smoking weed or whatever, watching TV or playing games, hang out and study with their friends, okay? It was like the effort you put in made you smarter. Even if you're genetically not as intelligent as another person, if you work harder, you'll get the results, okay? So that's basically what I'm trying to say now. Yes, there are people that have, ligaments that are longer, so they're more flexible than others, okay? But guess what? Even a person who's naturally inflexible will be able to get more flexible than the average person if he puts the time into it. And like I said, it's in terms of things like, well, my calves are strong, but my thighs are weak. I never really did squats. My thighs, my calves at one point were like almost bigger than my thighs. I looked deformed. I looked like I had an injury to my thighs that caused them to atrophy. And my calves looked like I was shooting steroids in them, like just an IV of steroids 24 hours a day. Awesome calves, terrible thighs. But guess what? I never really did squats. Now that I'm doing weighted pistol squats, my thighs are blowing the hell up. Like I said, I gained like 10 pounds almost overnight. I mean, it took like several weeks, like a month and a half, 2 months. But still, the fact of the matter is I gained 10 pounds, and I think most of it went into my thighs because I'm 42 years old and I never really seriously trained my thighs. Now I'm doing heavy weighted pistol squats. All of a sudden, they explode. So do I have weak thighs and do I have strong calves? Or is it just my entire life I've directly or indirectly, intentionally or unintentionally trained my calves, and I never really did squats or anything to work my thighs?